Matt and I are putting on the gloves and breaking out the haterade as we decide if we're buying in on some pitchers that are off to a hot start on today's action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source of fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. As always, I'm your host, Dominic Martino. You can find me on Twitter at DomMartinoFB. Here, as always, with my brother, my co-host, my partner in crime, Matthew Ane, and you can find him on Twitter at Matthew_Ane. If you're listening on a platform like Apple or Spotify that allows 5-star ratings and reviews, we would truly appreciate it if you could do that for us. And if you're watching on YouTube and you haven't already, hit that little bell below. It subscribes to the channel and gives you notification every time we drop a new episode. And lastly, most importantly, to Matt and I, guys, join us on the Subtext platform. You can find the link to our Subtext in our bio to wherever you're listening or watching, or available on all of our social media platforms. Through Subtext, it's a personalized, in-depth, one-on-one experience through text messaging alerts right to your phone, offering so much more than we can in this 30-minute podcast. And guys, today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. From brakes to exhaust kits and beyond, eBay Motors has over 122 million parts to keep your ride or die alive. With all the parts you need at prices you want, it's easy to bring home that big win and keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay's guaranteed fit is only available to U.S. customers. And then, guys, dive on into the ultimate fantasy baseball experience with our exclusive Locked On Fantasy Baseball hat giveaway. And guys, you can see Matt and I were in sync tonight. We both got them rocking. If you're watching on the YouTubes, if you're not, go check it out real quick. But guys, you can score big by simply sharing any of our posts on X or Instagram. Each share earns you an entry into the draw. The more you share, the greater your chances are of winning. Don't miss out. The drawing will be held on June 14th. Get in the game now. And guys, we have a great episode lined up for you. We're kind of switching things up this week. We're getting rid of the worryometer. We're bringing in sort of a mixed type episode where we're going to be discussing some starting pitchers. And actually, there's, I think, one reliever in the mix today, too, that have been very, very hot of late. And we're talking about whether we're buying in or not. And there's some cool controversial names. Matt and I are definitely going to be going back and forth on this one. So my brother, Matt, who are we talking about first today?
So we're talking Chris Sale. And it's funny, I really didn't buy in. I didn't think that ultimately he had it anymore. I figured, how old is he now, man? He's like 35 years old. Just hasn't been him in a while. Meanwhile, he was like one of the best pitchers in the game for a very long time. But you just don't know. But how it's going to break out, what the injury concerns were going to be. And so far, Chris Sale came out of the season like a bat out of hell, and I'm kind of buying in. A guy just doesn't go from probably like a future Hall of Famer to, somebody that can't pitch ever again. Yes, he was dealing with shoulder inflammation. Yes, he was dealing with, obviously father time, and it didn't look good. Like, honestly, like if I were to place a season bet on him before the season, it would have been for him to only pitch about 110 innings and, have an ERA over 4, because I just didn't see it happening. Last year's performance just didn't have me too excited, right? He showed good like stints of what he could possibly do for you, but ultimately that back came in and kind of ruined things for him and had him finish with a 4.3 ERA. This year it's completely viable. Everything looks good. All the advanced stats, such as like his fastball movement, even his velocity is up a whole mile per hour from last year. His xERA is on par with his actual ERA, and he's just really doing his thing. He's getting the Ks. He's not walking guys. He's not giving up hard hits at all. He's getting the ground balls when needed to. He looks fantastic. Honestly, the only thing that can ruin Chris Sale's season right now is ultimately an injury to the back or to the shoulder. Like, this has always been the caveat. So, right? So, like, even with Dom coming into the season, I'm sure you can speak about this more, there was always that hesitancy of where you could actually draft him. Yes, number one, good SP2, pitcher upside, but how long is that going to last for you? So basically, you just got to approach Chris Sale now as Clayton Kershaw, and just pray that his shoulder doesn't bother him, and it's more of like he starts dealing with back issues, because he can recover with that and not have to mess with his whole mechanics ultimately. So Chris Sale right now, this is a full out buy-in on this season for me, at least.
Yeah, Matt, this is one where we're actually in sync. I thought I might have caught you on Chris Sale, but that's somebody I was a little bit higher on coming into the year, somebody you were a little bit lower on. But the thing that always gave me hope with Chris Sale was at the end of last year, it really seemed like he had figured things out, right? His last 15 starts for Chris Sale, he went 9 wins, 6 losses, 79 innings pitched, 95 strikeouts, had a 3.16 ERA, a 3.41 FIP, which is fielding independent pitching. It's an ERA indicator. Kind of tells you where the ERA should be instead of where it is. So that was kind of in par with his ERA. And batters hit 197 against Chris Sale for 79 innings across his last 15 starts of last year. That's what really had me buying into Chris Sale. And then on top of it, the Atlanta Braves going to go out and get Chris Sale? Yes, please. He was coming off the board as a 36th starting pitcher. And if you bought in like I did, that's paying dividends. And Matt hit the nail on the head on pretty much everything. So I'm just going to second the fact that the only thing stopping Chris Sale is an injury this year. It's not the talent. I don't think there's any reason we should be questioning it. Let's move on and talk about somebody else that I love, the pterodactyl, Tarik Skubal, the best nickname in baseball and potentially the best pitcher in baseball at the moment. I mean, with a lot of the names that have gone down, it kind of really opened up the door for anybody to be the best starting pitcher so far. And if I had to, give it to anybody, I'd give it to Skubal. Through his first 9 starts, he has a 1.80 ERA and 0.78 WHIP, 55 innings pitched with 66 strikeouts. And everything seems to be working for Skubal. There's not much you could really say here besides I'm buying in. Is he going to be the best starting pitcher the rest of the way? Probably not. But hey, can he be a top 10 guy the rest of the way? He certainly can. And at Tarik Skubal's young age of 27, I think he's got at least 4 or 5 more years of being really, really dominant. I love the upside that Skubal has.
No, I mean, it's like I agree with your whole take, but my biggest thing was like this little dude and his massive arm is the thing that always was just a turnoff for me. I said this all offseason. I'm not buying Tarik Skubal being a phenomenal pitcher for a full season because I don't think he makes it a full season. I don't think his arm or him as a person can handle the velocity, right? And it's kind of
Matt, do we have the haterade? Do we have the haterade on deck for the fans?
It's not haterade because like everything Tarik Skubal is doing is phenomenal, right? Every pitch has at least a mile or two more than it did last year. He took a step forward, which also scares the living hell out of me for his small body frame. So like
I mean, he's not a small guy, 6'3", 240.
Yeah, but when guys, well, I'm sorry, not small body frame. I apologize, I'm saying wrong. For guys that throw gas, they have an issue, right? Like, look at guys that throw hard.
No, you're right. That I'll give you for sure.
They're quick to get TJ. They're quick to have shoulder issues. Like, and if it's not maintained right and managed right, like things happen. Like these younger dudes don't take care of themselves and look to have long careers like Chris Sale did, or like Kershaw has, and other guys that have good fastballs because they end up having TJ 2-3 times because they don't do the right things off the field. So like Skubal has already been an injury prone dude. If he does this will probably be his first full season. So like, I just don't want to, bet on, I didn't want to bet on him coming into the season. I'm not going to say trade him because obviously you're not going to, there's no reason to. He's a phenomenal 2-3 pitcher, but don't be surprised if something happens where the wheels start falling off because he's starting to have inflammation, or, TJ's on the loom or something of the sort because he just throws so damn hard. Or maybe this is the year he has Cy Young, and then next year I'm calling it again. I don't think I'll ever have full trust in Skubal until he does it for 2 years in a row, and then that'll be my luck. I buy in, and then it gets TJ. So, like, it's just hit or miss with baseball, I guess. But, like, Skubal right now, obviously he's phenomenal. Let's just be don't be surprised if we see an injury in the distance. It's one of those things. But all right, before we move on and we start talking guys like Paul Skeens, Hunter Green, Luis Gil, are we buying into these guys? What are our outlooks for the rest of the season? We'll be right back after. And Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. They are the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS. It's just you against the numbers instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks. You pick more or less than 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Exploring my skills on Prize Picks this season adds an extra layer of excitement to daily fantasy sports, which is a few taps. You could transform $10 into $1,000 easily. PrizePicks is incredibly user-friendly. You can make your selections, submit your entries in less than 60 seconds. And guys, since I'm talking about PrizePicks, I might as well give you something to get you started, right? So next time you go out there, offer Ryan Mountcastle to have higher than 0.5 total bases in his next game. Offer Shohei Ohtani to have higher than 0.5 home runs in his next game. We all know that's possible. And offer CJ Abrams to have higher than 0.5 stolen bases in his next game. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for first deposit match up to $100. I promise you won't stop playing once you get started. Again, download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy with PrizePicks. Are you watching Fox Sports and ESPN on your TV all day? Have you had to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or free on the Amazon Fire TV channel app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, guys, introducing the Locked On Fantasy Baseball Podcast Diamond Club on Subtext, your ultimate fantasy baseball companion. Rely on our dynamic content this season and get real-time alerts right to your phone, instant call-up notifications, waiver wire rankings, injury reactions, and a whole lot more. Stay ahead of the fantasy leagues by joining the Diamond Club on Subtext, where your path to victory begins. Subscribe now, elevate that fantasy baseball experience, and new customers get a free 2 weeks that you don't want to pass up on. Join us, I promise. You won't leave us once you're going to have a leg up on that competition all throughout the year. I'm going to be driving you to that Locked On Fantasy Baseball Championship. So, guys, that was a lot. Dom, all you, my guy.
Of course, brother. Of course. And this is such a fun name that I haven't gotten to talk about on this podcast yet. But Matt, my brother has. Let's talk some Paul Skeens, right? I think he's one of the most not controversial in a good way names in MLB right now. This kid, as far as fantasy baseball, people might not know how to value him, right? People hear the best pitching prospect since Steven Strasburg, and you think about Strasburg's career, even though it was riddled with injuries, he was a very, very talented pitcher, World Series MVP. There's a reason for it. So when Paul Skeens gets a comp like that, and then we see in his second start, strikes out the first 7 batters he faces, averaging 99.3 on the fastball, generating a lot of swings and misses. It's really tough to, figure out where we stand. I'll tell you where I stand. When I see a talent like this, I tend to buy in because you know what? There's a lot smarter guys than me that have scouted him and everything. There hasn't been a scout that hasn't said that he's pretty much one of the best pitchers there is. And the results are showing in his first 7 starts in AAA this year. Paul Skeens had pitched 27 innings, only walked 8, had 45 strikeouts with a 0.91 whip. So that's, said he was ready, then comes up in his second start and, does what he did with the 11 strikeouts against the Cubs, which is, a pretty solid team. 0.7 whip. I mean, 0.17 whip. I want to see more. Definitely want to see more. I honestly value him at right now, probably a top 25 starting pitcher. If you find somebody that's valuing him as a top 10 starting pitcher and you could grab yourself a Tarik Skubal or somebody of the sort, I'd go out there and get that deal done. But Paul Skeens is legit, guys. He's very, very good. And he's going to be very, very good for a long time, as long as he can stay on the diamond.
Yeah. I mean, top 25, I think, is even maybe a little too high expectation, but we all saw it, right? So even with Yuri Perez, who honestly I think would have been a top 10 pitcher this year, but at this point, if he didn't have TJ, right? You look at him and what he did last year, right? He had innings limits, which we all know Skeens is going to have.
Oh, definitely.
We also know that that he's going to struggle. The league is going to adjust and kind of see his pitches, more than once now, and people are going to adjust. It's good. I want to see what he's going to do once the league has adjusted to him. He's had a few bad starts. So I think maybe more like a top 35, top 40 pitcher, I think is more of a realistic, outlook for him because like I said, innings limits and all that wonderful stuff. But again, he's going to be a great pitcher for next year. If you could trade him and elevate and watch somebody get the hype up after a couple more insane starts, do it. Because you're going to get a way better return for a guy that's going to pitch more innings than Paul Skeens is at the end of the day than anything else, because you're also going to have to expect him to be out probably the week before All-Star break and at least a week or two after the All-Star break So right there, you're going to be out of one of your stud pitchers. Let that be on somebody else's team and try and trade him to the team you're going to play over those 3 weeks. So that's what I would do to just kind of throw another landmine on their team. But anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about Hunter Green. Somebody honestly coming into the season, I kind of wanted to forget about. Yes, he had fantastic talent. He has a phenomenal arm. Another guy that kind of scares me with his power as well because he throws super hard. But what I like about what Hunter Green has done in the offseason outside of making changes is he's added more pitches. He stopped throwing the changeup, which got hit a lot last year. He took that out of his repertoire, added a split finger and a curveball. The curveball looks great, even though he really hasn't thrown it all that much. The split finger has been getting hit, but I think it's just a pitch he's trying to work on. But his slider and his four-seamer have been absolutely untouchable. He dropped down the velo on them, too, about a mile per hour. And it's looking good. The problem with Hunter Green is I feel like he's throwing so hard he didn't have the control. So if we could see a guy mature, say, hey, man, I could take a step back and, maybe want to place it where it is instead of just blowing it past you and trying to Matt Harvey everything, then he could be a little bit more successful. Does this stick? Is this maybe something else? I don't know. A lot of this stuff stands out and says, hey, man, there's a lot of red, but the things that I could see are just still there that is not as successful. It doesn't have me completely buying in is his off-speed pitches aren't getting the movement that he wants. That is, it's a little flat. He's walking guys still. He's not getting ground balls. He's not getting guys to fully chase, but he is getting the strikeouts, and obviously his velocity and his xERA is all matching up to what he's doing. There's just some signs of where he may not be this good for the full season. I think right now is a prime time to keep him, hang on to him. But if you start seeing a little trend in the wrong direction, bail out and sell high while you can, and rather be on the other side of that trade and watching him blow up on somebody else's team and having a good season versus demolishing you because you decided to hang on to him.
Yeah, man. So this is Hunter Green's an interesting one. So I'm kind of half in, half out with you here. I didn't expect Hunter Green to adjust like this. Like you said, Hunter Green has taken a little bit off that dominant fastball. Hunter Green's a guy who could match Paul Skeens, pitch for pitch when it comes to velocity, but sometimes you got to do it. Sometimes, you can't control the ball. And I love to see that Green's a student of the game and he's figuring out, hey, this is what's going to work for me. And when you have the talent and you combined it with the mental side of the game, it becomes really dangerous. And what I'm noticing something over the last 30 days for, Hunter Green. So over the last 30 days, it's 38 innings for Hunter Green, 2 wins, 36 strikeouts, a 2.61 ERA, and a 1.08 whip with 3 quality starts in that time. So the big thing that sticks out to me is the 38 innings to the 36 strikeouts. Hunter Green's a guy who could rack up the strikeouts. He could have monster strikeout games, but he could turn around and, give up, 5 earned runs in a game like that because he's doing an Aaron Nola, trying to strike everybody out, or the old school Noah Syndergaard instead of actually pitching. And he adds, as Matt mentioned, a split finger and a curveball. Those aren't even pitches that have to be great for him. They just need to throw pitchers off. So if they're sitting on the four-seamer or the slider, which is 2 main pitches, he throws in a curveball or a split finger, you're taken back. You're like, oh, now I have to wait on those 2, or I have to add that into the mix when I'm facing Hunter Green. It becomes very dangerous. And I think Hunter Green, if he can keep this going and we see him finish out the year like this, he's a guy, top 20 starting pitcher next year, Matt. I just think the sky is the limit for a guy who has the talent like this, and now I'm starting to see the brain behind it too. I love to see it from a 24-year-old Hunter Green that's 6'5", 242, prospect pedigree. I mean, there's not much else more you can ask for it except Paul Skeens.
Yeah, I mean, the top 20 I think is a little high. I think top 35, top 36, and the reason being is to his home park. So there's always that potential to have the blow up game. So I don't think for me he'll ever be higher than 25 because of the home park and half his starts. Now
that's fair. Great point.
Yeah. And the other thing too is he is doing a good job of suppressing home runs. Last year through 22 starts, he had 19 home runs. He's already had 10, which is almost half, 1 game short, right? 1 start short. He's only given up 4. So he's improved on that too. So there's things that are coming into play that he's doing well. But again, I don't have it in front of me, but how many of those games has he pitched at home versus away? And that would be for a discussion for a different day. We could revisit this in another month for him. So, yeah, I think this has been great talk so far. And, before we move on and we talk about guys like Seth Lugo, Mason Miller, Luis Gill, and, a few other guys. We stick around right after this.
And we're talking about our friends at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, patience. What brings home the winning trophy is what also keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's guaranteed fit, you're guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay's guaranteed fit is only available to U.S. customers. And you know what, Matt, if you don't mind, can I grab the next guy?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, cool. Somebody that I really wanted to talk about, Seth Lugo. A big Seth Lugo lover. If you listen to the podcast at all last year, somebody I really, talked about a lot and was high on, did not see this type of, season incoming from the 34-year-old Seth Lugo. A 1.79 ERA through his first 10 starts, 65 innings, only 13 walks, 58 strikeouts, and an 0.98 whip. As I said, super unexpected. But Kansas City has actually been a team that has actually been doing okay with starting pitchers of late. We might not have seen, major results from a lot of them. But look at a guy like Cole Reagans, who in Texas was kind of just thrown to the water and goes over to Kansas City last year and figures something out. I don't know what they saw in Seth Lugo, maybe a couple minor adjustments or something, and, he's gotten to this level. I don't think he keeps it up. I think he definitely, gets back to the mean, and we see like a mid-threes ERA the rest of the way from Lugo, obviously under that K per 9. The control is something that, over the last couple of years has been at least decent for Lugo, and throughout his career, there's been moments where he, really shined when it came to control. So that's something he could, keep up the rest of the way. But it's just wild to see a guy like Seth Lugo, where I do have ADP pulled up. I just want to see how late we were getting Seth Lugo, and he just kind of comes out and really does this. It was after. Oh, okay. Starting pitcher 86 is where Seth Lugo is going off the board. So if you listen, somebody that I had around like 50, 60, you paid off here. But honestly, trade him if you can. If you can add him to a sweet little trade to put it over the top, I think that's where you're going to make the money here.
Yeah, I agreed. Like, he's one of those dudes that just, I think, is completely overperforming. You look at his baseball savant page, there's a lot of blue, right? You move into like the pitching area, like he's getting great movement on his fastball and his breaking balls and all that stuff. Like, that stuff is all great. It's just his stuff is good. But what I'm not liking is his xERA is a 3.58, and he's right now stunning a 1.79. Like, that's ugly. Okay. You also look at, just his average exit velocity, right? He's giving up 89 miles per hour on the average. That is not good. That's like elite, like that's like what you want on a good hitter in general to have as an exit velocity, and he's giving that up on an average. He's not getting guys to chase. He's not getting whiffs. He's not getting the Ks the way you want it. He is suppressing walks, but guys are barreling against him. They're getting hard hits. He's not getting ground balls. Like, those are all signs of a guy that's going to turn a corner in a negative way really soon if he can't pick up on those categories, because that's literally what makes it defines whether a pitcher is this good or is just getting really lucky. And Seth Lugo, I think, is getting really lucky. So, Dom, great point to go and just say dip out right now and trade high, because this is not going to last.
He'll still be useful though. I'll definitely say
Spot starts.
Yeah, no, he'll be useful in the sense of he'll be like a great number 6 or 7 starting pitcher on your team, where on most weeks he'll give up like 2-3 earned runs, have like 6 innings, 4 strikeouts, and a decent whip. He won't be the ace of your team. So like I said, capitalize while you can for sure.
Yeah, no, right, absolutely. I mean, you got to capitalize, but also too, you might be able to turn him into something a lot better than what you're actually getting. So let's move on here. Because I think we spent a lot of time on him. Let's talk Mason Miller. So it's weird. So if I remember correctly, my guy really just was kind of like not really like the most impressive player last year, in my opinion. He had some good like outlining starts for me. or where he was when he was a starter, he looked good in certain aspects, but then didn't really like do it for me at the end of the day. And I love the fact they moved him into the bullpen. I feel like his biggest thing was he was able to get through the like first 2 times through the inning, and then it would always be dangerous to be like, okay, what are we doing here? So I'm glad that that was the transition, and he's looked fantastic. I got to say, and you look at his baseball savant page, everything is red. There's not an ounce of blue, and I think this is all legitimate. I think he's going to be really great moving forward, coming out of the bullpen versus anything else. And yeah, that's pretty much just it for him. For me, I'm happy.
So I'll say this: we agree on pretty much everything except one. He actually really impressed me last year. I watched a couple of his starts. I had him on a couple of teams, and not only the velocity, but just the way he pitched really what was impressive to me last year. Really mainly a 2-pitch guy. But Spencer Strider gets away with it because of the velocity and how good his slider is, and that's what Miller has really leaned into this year. Even though he threw a little bit of a cutter last year, I think Mason Miller could be the best closer in baseball. If he was on a good team, I don't know if the A's are going to want to give him up. I could see them giving him up for the right price come the trade deadline, because there's going to be teams that are going to be calling and asking about Mason Miller after the way he's performed so far. I don't even know if we brought up his stats, but Mason Miller so far in the season through 15 games has a 0.93 ERA, 19 innings pitched, only 5 walks, 38 strikeouts, and a 0.62 WHIP. I mean, Matt, we were talking earlier about Hunter Green, how he took something off his velocity, right? Mason Miller doesn't have to do that anymore now that he's a closer. He could just go out there and throw the gas, throw the 100, 102, and get these guys out. And as you said, I'm really happy for him that Oakland did this for him. Get him in the bullpen, let him shine there. Sometimes not everybody has to be a starter. You don't always have to be a starting pitcher. It could really work for guys like Mason Miller coming out of the bullpen, and he's really excelling. I think it's crazy. I think the Dodgers go out there and make a run for him. I hate to say it, but it's such a Dodger thing to do, to go out there and steal a guy like Mason Miller at the trade deadline and bulk up that bullpen, and then they can go Miller, Phillips, and Hudson as their last 3. And that's just nasty. But let's move on to a Yankee here. As we're getting close to wrapping things up, let's talk Luis Gil. I don't know if any of you guys were watching that last Luis Gil start, because I was, and boy was he absolutely dominant. I know it was the White Sox, but he went 6, struck out 14, gave up 1, and had a 1 WHIP as well. Obviously got the quality start in that one. And Luis Gil is a young pitcher who always had the talent to perform like this, never really put it together. Though, the control was really always the big issue with Gil. And I think he's taken a step in the right direction this year. Through his 9 starts, has 5 wins, 2.39 ERA, 1.08 WHIP, 49 innings, 62 strikeouts. He was actually somebody that was talking about maybe like 3 weeks ago as, on the must-add waiver wire episodes. Got him up to 80%, guys. So great job there. And honestly, Luis Gil is just another guy I'm kind of really buying into. I really think he has the stuff to get it done. You look at Savant, you see a lot of good. There's a little bit of bad there too, but I really think Luis Gil can keep it going. Maybe not to this level, but he could be definitely valuable for the rest of the way.
Yeah, no, I mean, for what he's going to be for you, like a pitcher 5, like not even pitcher 5, like 6, 7,
Yeah.
right? Like he was a waiver wire ad ultimately. So like this is great production. Will you get a lot for him in a trade right now? Maybe, but like, I mean, honestly, I'm probably not going to trade him all that much unless I'm getting a decent return. And he's like the key cog in it, and I'm not giving up too much around it. Other than that, like he is doing a lot of good things. Like you said, yeah, I wish he would get a little bit more chase. I wish he would walk less guys, and I wish he'd get a little bit more ground balls, especially at home with that short porch. But I still say a lot of things are good. He's not giving up the hard contact, which can kind of subside the lack thereof ground balls, things like that. I also like the fact that he added the cutter this year, even though he hasn't really thrown it all that much. I'm hoping we see a little bit more of that, so we can see a little bit more chase, see a little bit more upside in terms of the K department, and then he could probably take that step forward to be that good for us. Again, I don't see him being like anything higher than going to the next year as a top 50 pitcher, unless he really turns the corner and just like turns it on completely. But he's going to be somebody very interesting for next year. And I can't wait to see what he's going to look like down the stretch. But with that being said, Dom, do you have anything else left in here?
We want to sneak in one more. I think we sneak in one more, right?
Sure.
Yeah, let's sneak in one more for the people, because I feel like we've cut him on like 3 episodes. I want to get him in here. Let's talk a little Jack Flaherty, right? Jack Flaherty is such an interesting name, as this guy, what, Matt, like, what was it, 3 or 4 years ago at this point? We thought he was going to be, like the next big thing in baseball. We thought he was going to take over and just be absolutely dominant. Dealt with a lot of injuries. Honestly, probably should have got surgery a couple years back, and they, I think the Cardinals dropped the ball on that one, but that's kind of besides the point here. He's looking good, a little bit of up and down this year, but I really like to see, Jack Flaherty at least, doing something right. Through his 9 starts this year, he has a 3.79 ERA, 54 innings, 72 strikeouts, and a 1.06 WHIP. And he pitches in a great ballpark to suppress runs. So I'm surprised the ERA is as high as it is. A lot of good stuff here on Savant. The fastball isn't really great. The breaking stuff seems to really be what's thriving for him here, as the fastball is getting hit at a 283 clip. I think his velocity's gone down over the years. Somebody correct me if I'm mistaken. So it's tough here, Flaherty. Do I think he's this good, the rest of the way? Somewhat. I think the strikeouts can definitely stay where they are. The stuff is good enough to get it done, but otherwise, I'm not really sure here. But I do like me some Jack Flaherty.
Yeah, I mean, there is some positive regression that could possibly come too. Like, there is a world in a way where like he gets better, right? Like you look at his xERA is a 2.92, which I kind of believe that better because of the run suppressing home field that you mentioned, right?
Yeah, that's a thing. Yeah,
and his fastball is flat, like you said. But if you look at his past couple of years, that was his best pitch. He's a 2-pitch pitcher, for most of his career, and now you see he's added a repertoire of things. Like he used to just go, okay, I'm throwing my fastball and throwing my slider and I'm calling it a day. Now he's mixed in the knuckleball, which he's thrown in a hell of a lot more, 18%, which he kind of implemented last year, which could show why he was so unsuccessful last year. Because, just throwing in a new pitch kind of messes up with you. Got this change up in there. He's got a few other things. Jack Flaherty does have another side, but I think if anything, before we could see it, he's going to get hurt first, and it's just going to go bye-bye, because it's just one of the things. But I'm also a Jack Flaherty truther. I always have a sweet spot for him in my heart, but I can't really buy in too hard and heavy yet because he just hasn't really done it. But Dom,
slider looks better this year too. Slider looks better, which is a great thing.
Everything about him looks better. So maybe this is just a good fit. We'll see. But Dom, you have anything else to add?
No, that's pretty much it, guys. On that note, thank you for watching. Please subscribe, comment, rate, and review. Thank you to our everydayers and listeners making Locked On Fantasy Baseball your first listen each and every day. But guys, until next time, see ya.